Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again, and this is going to be another Sony Vegas Pro 17 tutorial. Now this video is going to be more of an advanced tutorial. It's going to be on a specific thing. If you're looking for more basic tutorials or like a basic editing technique, stuff like that with Sony Vegas, highly recommend going and check out my editing for beginners with Vegas Pro 17. I have a video all about it. It's like 30 minutes long, and I know a lot of people have been enjoying it, so I figured I'd be making some more tutorials for you guys. But these effects are going to be more catered towards the advanced era, so if you're new to Sony Vegas, I highly recommend the beginner's techniques first, and then come back to this afterward. So with that being said, today we're going to be looking at tracking, which is pretty much the main concept of this video. We'll be going a little bit more into it as we go on, but this is going to basically be if you ever want to make something move on camera, or maybe do some zoom-ins on your video for like a comedic effect, or maybe something. Maybe your camera didn't have a zoom feature at the time and you wanted to zoom in on your frame after the fact. This is how you're going to be able to do that. We will also be getting into masking. If you're not sure what that is, do not worry. We'll be getting into it soon enough. So with that all said, let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is start a new project. So you're going to open Sony Vegas Pro 17. It's going to look like this. And the first thing you want to do is go up to File. And we're going to do a new project. Do you want to save changes? We haven't done anything, so no. And this window will pop up here. And we want to start it out at 1080p or really any frame rate or size that you're going to want it to be. So my display is 1080p. I don't have a 4K monitor. If you do have a 4K monitor and you plan on rendering it in 4K, yes, I highly recommend moving that up, upscaling it. But for this video, we're going to be doing 1080p. And I like to record at 60 frames per second. I just think it looks smoother. It looks a little bit better. I know if you're going for more of a cinematic experience, you're going to want to go for 30 FPS or 24 frames per second, which in that case, you would just do the 1080p and you choose the right frame rate for that. So as you can see, there's 30 FPS and there's 24 frames per second. But I'm doing 60, which is 59.94. So you can copy mine if you want. These are all the settings that I have right now. You can pause the video if needed. If you're unsure what to do, I recommend checking out my beginner technique video. I go more in depth into what to choose and whatnot in this area. But for right now, we're just going to hit OK. And we are now at our project. So the first thing we want to do is import our media. So by this point, we'd hope that you've already recorded your media that you're going to be importing to the editing process. So for this video, I have three things that I'm going to be bringing in. I have my video clip, and I have some images that we're going to be putting on top of the video clip, and I'll get more into that in a second. So once they're imported, they will show up here in your project media tab. So we got the video clip, and we got two images. Now this video clip I already have on my channel. This is my Galaxy Buds review from Samsung. I just wanted to bring a random clip in here. I didn't record anything specific for this video, but the thing we're going to do is what's with these images. So first things first, we're going to bring in your video clip. And we're going to get out of the way, first of all, the tracking. So this is for if you ever want to zoom in on your image. Let's say for some reason you wanted to crop this a little bit in, or maybe you want to do a zoom in for a comedic effect. So first thing you want to do is you want to cut out the area that you want to do this. So obviously you probably don't want the entire video zoomed in, or, you know, wasting the entire clip of your video being zoomed in and zoomed out. You want small sections of it. So you're going to go to that area on your timeline to where you want to zoom in essentially. We're going to use the mouse scroll, or the scroll wheel on your mouse, to zoom in, and we can get as, you know, zoomed in as we need to. I'm not going to go that far. I'm just showing you as an example. But we're going to select our spot, and once we're in the right spot you want to split, basically, we're going to hit S as in Sally on the keyboard, and that will split your clip right down the middle. And now you can see we got a nice definitive split here. And let's say we want it to end like right around here. So again, actually we're going to keep it where my face is. So right here, right? So we're going to hit S again. And there we go. As you can see, we got a nice split here all by itself. And now this is the area where we're going to do a zoom, essentially. So the first thing you want to do is up above the clip, we have a few different options here. The only one you're going to worry about is the event pan/crop window. We're going to click on that. And it's going to open up this window here. It opened up my other monitor, but do not worry. It'll show up right here for you. And you can make this screen as big or as small as you need it to be. I'm going to have it pretty much the whole thing here. And as you can see, we get a few options here, which can be kind of confusing if you've never seen the screen before, but do not worry, it's pretty self-explanatory. So this main area here, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out of. This is your image. So, and you can see live what you manipulate over here. So I'll make this a little bit smaller so it's a little bit easier to understand. So there we go. So if I move this area, if I click and I drag this around, you can see over here, I'm moving my image around essentially. So wherever this F is, this essentially is this window if you think of it that way. So as you can see, we're dragging it down, the window is moving me up, and it's kind of inverted. So if you ever get out of place or you screw up and you're like resize it to the wrong thing or something like that, you know, you screwed up, you're gonna right click and hit restore. That's just an easy undo basically. So let's say you wanted to zoom in or just crop out something. The easiest way to do this is just grab a corner and just drag it in. And the smaller this gets, the more it zooms in, and it's going to crop out some of the image. This is the easiest way, again, to crop it if you really needed to for the entire length of this video clip. Again, this is only going to affect this area from where you split it. It's not going to affect the entire clip unless you didn't split it. Next thing is, we're going to restore this. Next thing is, these over here are very important. These are your tools. I've personally never used the zoom edit tool or the enable snapping or the move freely. I pretty much always have the size about center and the lock aspect ratio selected, and same with the normal edit tool and the show properties. Now, these two are the ones that you're going to manipulate the most, or basically deselect and select the most. By default, I believe they are selected, and that's so that you can move freely in here without this ever changing its aspect ratio. Now, if you deselect these, you will notice you can now freely change this. Now, there are some benefits and some caveats to this. So one thing is, if you ever wanted to make a more cinematic look to your videos, like if you wanted those bars, the bottom and the top, the easiest way to do this is just to click and drag this down, and you can see it creates that kind of movie cinema effect. Obviously, this crops your video, so some of it's going to be cut off now. Definitely want to do this beforehand. You'd want to, you know, make sure you're recording in a sense that you know what's going to be cut off and it's not going to look bad. But that is the easiest way to make a kind of movie star appearance in a way. Now, the other reason for this would be if you wanted to stretch and manipulate an image. So if it was something not like your actual video clip of you, but let's say like these images up here, like the sunglasses or whatever, this is where you'd want to deselect these, and you can manipulate the size to whatever way you want. I'll come back to that in a little bit later to explain it better with a visual, because I'm like a lot of people out there, I'm a visual learner. Hearing me talk is just mumbo jumbo until you see it in person. So I will promise I'll come back to that and it'll make more sense. For right now, again, we're just going to zoom in, and this is going to be for, again, if you're going to make a, like, I know a lot of YouTubers make this as like a comedy reference, like, let's say it's going along and all of a sudden just goes like boom, like zooms in their face and it looks really funny, right? So if you want to do this, the easiest way to do it is you want to use the position. As you can see down here, we have a mask and a position. In the position aisle here, you can add individual keyframes, which essentially will link up to wherever this is. So as you can see, mine is a little bit different than what yours is going to do. So if I have my cursor like on the middle here and I manipulate this window, it automatically adds a keyframe. Now, this is going to be a little bit different for you unless you have this check down here, the sync cursor. If that is off by default, and watch what happens when I have it deselected and I start moving it. You see how this is not moving now? It's not lined up with it. I personally do not like that. I don't know why, but default why that's off, but this is how you make it so it does link up together, and it's a much easier experience overall, I believe. If you select the sync cursor mode, now it'll stick and basically follow with you, so you can see live what you're manipulating. And as well, when you manipulate this, it will also add a keyframe automatically, which is way easier in my opinion. So again, let's say so at the beginning, it's, you know, it's normal. Let's say you wanted to do a really fast zoom in. So they want to do a couple frames out in front, which I'm doing this just by clicking and dragging this thing here. We're going to go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, do like 6 frames out, and then we'll zoom in. So we're going to click and drag. And again, make sure these two are selected, just so you're not manipulating the image too much. You're just zooming in. And let's say we want it like really zoomed in to make it funny, right? So now if you drag this back, you can see it animates for you. It just slowly zooms in. Or not slowly, this is a pretty fast zoom, but as you can see. And that's how you do it, really. And then if you wanted to zoom back out, The easiest way to do this, because watch if I just zoomed out, like so let's say I go like 10 frames after the zoom, and then I just like hit restore. It'll make a frame where it's back to normal, but watch what it does. This is not what you want. This is not, again, not what you want. So we're at the beginning, it zooms in, and then it zooms right out. Now, you may want that. I don't know why, but you might want that. But what I normally do, I'm going to delete this keyframe by selecting it, right click, and then delete. Now, what you want to do is you're going to right click where the zoom stops on that keyframe. We're going to right click it and we're going to hit copy. And we're going to go 10 frames out, roughly. And then we're going to right click and hit paste. And now what this does is it technically stretches out the time frame of the zoom where it stopped. And now from here, we can go about 10 frames out and then restore. So right click, restore. And now watch the difference, right? It zooms in. We got a funny little monologue and then zooms out. So that's essentially zooming and tracking. That's essentially the gist of it. It seems complicated. It seems difficult at first, and it truly is. It took me a few months to master this. And I was without tutorials. I learned all this on my own, by the way. But this is years and years of using Sony Vegas over the years, and I've loved it. I've been enjoying it ever since. But I didn't have the luxury of tutorials like you guys do. But honestly, just give it a shot. Try it out a few times. Just mess around. Add as many keyframes as possible. Just mess around with it, and you can see what it does. And you can drag these around, so you don't have to like delete them, re-add them. You can just drag them around to make it easier. So you want this to be a slower zoom in. You can again drag it out. And as you can see, it does a lot of the work for you, which is super nice. So that's essentially like an easy zoom. And also cropping if you ever needed to do that. So let's say you wanted to follow something. So I know another thing, I guess coming back to the comedic aspect, a lot of YouTubers, you probably noticed, where they'll zoom in and they'll follow something, like maybe their hand moving around, like for comedic effect. So you can see my hands moving a lot in this image here. So we're just going to do this first part right here with my hands moving around. So again, we're going to do a couple frames out. We're going to zoom in, but this time to my hand. So I'm going to drag it over. I'm going to zoom really far in. All right, so it's on my hand, right? And now, little by little, we're going to move the cursor and we're going to follow my hand. So there we go. So already one frame in and my hand moved that fast. We're going to drag it down. And every time you move it, it's going to create a new keyframe. Just keep that in mind. So we're just doing this over and over again. Moving this, following the hand, dragging it down. Move it again. Follow the hand, drag it down. Yada, yada, yada. I'm probably going to fast forward this part just so you get a gist of it. All right, so this is going to look like crazy wildness, honestly, but this is what I'm kind of getting at, where you can zoom in and track. So here it is. So it looks kind of wild because my hand goes off screen quite a lot here. I wish I had a better example for you, but this is essentially what tracking is on Sony Vegas and how to do it the easiest way. All you really do is just make sure your window here is where you want it to be. It creates a keyframe for you. Go a keyframe over, move it to where you want it to be. It'll create a keyframe and just keep going until you have it exactly where you want it. And it'll animate kind of for you. It'll follow in its path where it needs to go. That essentially is keyframing. That is tracking essentially in Sony Vegas. Pretty easy. I understand it's easier to explain than it is to show you. But really, it's just practice. The more you do it, the more you'll understand it, the easier it'll get. Just keep at it, keep messing around with it. If there is something I missed, just comment below and I'll come back to it. All right, the next thing I wanted to do was show you how to add an image over something, manipulate it, and maybe make it follow the person. Kind of the same thing we just did, but a little bit more advanced. So we have our clip, but we want to put something on top of it. So we're going to go to this gray spot down here where there's no video or audio. We're going to right click, insert video track. And then you'll see another video track will pop up here. And we're going to drag one of our images down. So I'm going to put sunglasses over my head. The way this works is I just went on Google. I typed in sunglasses PNG. Make sure it is a PNG image because the sunglasses background will be automatically deleted. There'll be no background. so you can easily put it in a video editor and not have to edit with it or delete the background in Photoshop yourself. It's just a headache that you don't want to deal with. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about right now, you just don't want to deal with it. So make sure it's a PNG image and there's no background. Once you drag it in, you can see it's obviously not the right size, but the first thing you want to do is right-click your PNG image, go to Switches, and make sure Maintain Aspect Ratio is turned off. You might notice it might make the image look a little bit risque, or it might askew it. I should say not risque, but askew it, and that's okay. We're going to fix it, I promise. The next thing is you want to go into the event pan/crop of the sunglasses or whatever image you dragged in. So not of your main clip, but of the thing above it. So we're going to go to the event pan/crop. Same kind of window pops up again, just like we saw before. And this time, it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more... Well, essentially, it's going to be the same resolution as the image you dragged in. So my resolution isn't the same as my main clip was. It's a little bit elongated and short. But if we deselect these two things, again, the lock aspect ratio, and the size about center, make sure they're not selected. We can now manipulate this to be any size we want. So I'm going to drag up to make it a little bit more skinny. And then we're going to drag the corners out to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to zoom out with my mouse wheel. And we're just going to drag it until it looks about right. And then we're going to grab the whole thing. We want it to cover my face like they'd be real sunglasses, right? Alright, doesn't have to be perfect. That's probably about as good as we're going to get. Obviously, you know, anybody who's watching this can tell they're fake, but this is just for an example. Now, another thing I did, and I did this on purpose to show you the only downside to having this sync cursor thing checked is that a lot of the times you're going to be in the middle of your clip and you'll see right now I'm at pretty much the middle of my clip right now, and it added a key interval. If you go back, you're going to notice that at the beginning of the clip right now, the interval is where it originated. Now you're probably like, well, what the heck? How do I fix that? You know, I don't want to have to re-mess with that all again. Super easy, I promise. It's a super easy thing to do. Again, go to the key where you had it perfect, where you want it to be. Right-click it, hit copy. At the very beginning, just click on it, right-click, paste. And there you go. Now the entire thing is going to be the same. Now, the only problem is, obviously, it's not following my head, so this is where the tracking comes into place. Since I copied it here, I'm going to delete this one, because we don't need it there right now. But, at the beginning here, I keep adding ones by accident, but at the beginning here, you can see it's not matched up with my face. So, again, we're going to move it to where it needs to be. And if you want to rotate it, there's a circle around the square. Click on the circle, and you can rotate it. So it looks kind of more realistic, I guess. Again, this isn't going to look perfect. This isn't meant to be super realistic. This is an example. And we're going to zoom in on the timeline, and we're going to go frame by frame. And we're going to make it follow my face where it needs to be for realism aspects. And now, obviously, this is a super tedious process. This takes quite a while. Or not... I guess it will take quite a while, but I'd say more it just takes a lot of patience, which a lot of people don't have, and I understand. You know, that's where video editing is an art form in a way, and a lot of art takes patience, takes practice. It's never going to be easy the first time you do it. It's never going to be something that'll be done within a few minutes. And especially when it comes to tracking and stuff like this, you know, expect that some of your projects are going to take a few hours, maybe longer, to complete 100%, and that's okay. They're never going to come out 100% perfect unless you put a lot of time and energy into them. And that's the sad reality, but it's true. So I'm not going to do this entire clip with these sunglasses. I'm just showing a quick example. This is also going to be very fast. But as you can see, the sunglasses stay with me as I move now. They look a little jittery because I'm splitting these keyframes up pretty heavily. In order to fix the jitteriness, really the only way to fix that is to zoom in and put an interval, pretty much a key at every one of these little splits here. So every frame, you want to move the sunglasses to where they need to be. Otherwise, they're going to float a little bit, and then it's not going to look too realistic. But that's the price to pay to have a very realistic animation effect. But this is just the gist. Again, just the gist, opening the door for you. You can do a lot more with this than what I'm showing. but this is just an example. The other thing I want to show you, I guess, was this little bubble. This is kind of the exact same thing. It's just a tiny bit different, I guess. So again, we have a PNG image of an idea cloud, I want to call it. Again, we're going to right click it, switches, uncheck the maintain aspect ratio. It might change the aspect ratio a little bit, which is okay. Event pan size crop. This time we can, well, actually I'm going to elongate a little bit. So I was going to say we can reselect these if you wanted to, but I'm going to make it look a little bit better. I'm going to stretch it out again. So it's a little bit, that's about the size I want it to be, right? Right about there. Perfect. And now what I was going to do with this one, and again, I made a keyframe in the wrong spot. I'm going to drag that to there. There we go. What I'm going to do with this one is instead of using the position and moving this, we're going to use a mask. And this is a very, very useful tool. This is a little bit more complicated, and I do apologize right now if this becomes cumbersome or if I lose you during this. I understand it's a little bit cumbersome, but I promise if you just replay the video and go back and see what I did, it'll make sense. But I just want to have a little warning at the beginning. This can be a little bit complicated for people who are brand new to this. So first thing you want to do is select the mask option. You can see when you select out of the position area, the F goes away. Now it's just your image. And the next thing you want to do is make sure it's checked. If it's not checked, nothing will show up, nothing will work. So make sure that's checked next to mask and you're good to go. The next thing is we're going to be creating key intervals in this bottom track now, not in the top one anymore. And that's where your mask is going to be. Now, 90% of your masks are just going to be a square. So what you're going to do is you got a few different tools here now. Most of these, again, you don't really have to worry about. I mean, you could use the rectangle one for this, but I feel it's a lot easier just to use the anchor creation tool and build a square yourself. That'll make sense in a second. But so you're just going to select the anchor creation tool. Do not worry about any of the other tools for right now. First thing you're going to do is create a square. So this one, luckily, we already have a square around it, so we're just going to kind of copy it. So we're going to click, 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 click. This does not have to be a perfect square. Do not worry if some of your lines are bent or whatever. Do not worry. Make sure they always connect at the end, though, that it comes back to your original anchor point. If it doesn't, it's not going to create a group, essentially, and you won't be able to move it or manipulate it correctly. So once you have it all selected, you'll notice that if you go to one of the anchors, they'll all glow yellow. That lets you know that you have a proper group, which is basically a square. Now, you're going to use the normal edit tool, and this lets you actually manipulate it and move your mask around. Now, do you see what's happening up in the live feed right now? Whatever is in the mask is what is visible. So if I slide out of the way, it covers up your image. Now, you can also invert this to where this, whatever is the mask is on, is invisible. And that's what normally I do. So the mode, right here, it's on positive. I just go negative. And as you can see now, whatever it's covering it will actually show up, which is kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it covered up pretty much as best as I can here. There we go. So you can't see any of it in the video right now, right? And again, we want to delete this first one and place that there. There we go. Now, the next thing you want to do is under the feather type. This is very important. A lot of people kind of miss this part. The feather is essentially the edge of your mask. So by default, the edge is super straight. There's no fade at all. So if it, like, let's say if I covered myself up, I don't think I can right now because it's only manipulating the cloud. But look at the square right now. See how like it's straight edge right now? If I change the feather type to out, and then the feather percent to, let's say, like 3, look at it, shows more of a blur now. And it rounds the edges. It makes it look a little cleaner. And obviously, the more feather you put, the more blur it's going to create, which is kind of cool. I usually have it about 2 or 3. You don't need it super crazy. And I actually normally use both instead of out. But I think for this one, we're just going to do out. I think it looks a little better. But yeah, usually I use both. But for now, we're just going to use out, all right? So anyway, so make sure it's covered up on the first interval. And there we go. Next one we're going to do, this is going to be pretty quick. So we're going to do 1 frame, 2 frame, on the 3rd frame, right? We're going to start showing the cloud. So there we go. Then we're going to do 1, 2, 3. We're going to show the next cloud. And then 1, 2, 3. And we're going to show half of this one. I think we jumped a little bit too far with that one. Let's see. Hold on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So watch now what happens. So again, at the beginning, the mask completely covered the cloud. And then as the intervals go, the mask moves up, revealing the cloud. This is a very crude animation of it, but this is kind of a cool way where you can make stuff appear like an idea, a bubble appear. This is the easiest way to do it. Now, there is countless effects you can do with masks. I have made other tutorial videos in the past. They're not on this channel. They were on my old one that I deleted, so I might redo them again. But I've made effects with the masking, and like ghost effects, like how to make spirits in your videos, and stuff like that, which it's really useful. It's a very useful tool. This is, again, the basically the bare bones minimum of what you can do with masks. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but this is one of the coolest things that I like to do with Sony Vegas is with the position and the masking tools. So, and you might make this a little more cleaner if we do both maybe, and then make the feather type a little bit more, like maybe 14. Looks a little bit better, but you can still see like a straight line, which, you know, if you wanted to make it a little bit more cleaner, maybe make this a circle instead of a square. You can do a lot of possibilities with this. This is just a crude example of what I'm trying to get at here, what a mask does really. But it is very useful. It's very cool. This is also what people use for like blurring out faces in like interviews and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with the mask that I really enjoy. I was going to try to show you how to do like a blurry face effect, but I realized there's a lot more into that than just what I'm showing in this video. So I'll probably make a separate video on how to blur out someone's face and features and stuff like that if you want. Let me know in the comment section below if you would like to see a video on that, specifically just for that effect. I would gladly make it. But for right now, that essentially is it. That is tracking motion in Sony Vegas and masking. That, again, bare bones minimum of how to do it. I didn't get into super specifics like how to make specific effects essentially, but this is the bare bones and a very good starting point for you if you are new to Sony Vegas and you're new to making effects like this and you just want to know how to get to these positions basically in these spots of where, okay, now I have the bare bones minimum, I can understand where to go from here and just practice with it and make stuff of your own. Again, if you have specific questions or if you have a specific effect you don't understand how to do, please let me know in the comment section below. I love teaching people new effects. I love teaching people things on Sony Vegas. It's a passion of mine. I love this program. I've been using it for about 10 years now. And I still to this day learn new stuff almost every day with this program. So, again, let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like to show your support as always if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more tutorials in the future. And if you like this video, hope to see you guys in the next one. Love y'all. Peace.